Greetings, traveler.
So, new patch. First, we're going to cover some changed heroes. The sad reality with a lot of these heroes is that at the level that I'm playing, it will not really matter if these heroes get buffed because they don't do anything for economy. Like, essentially, you do not want to spend money on making your minions stronger with your hero power. That's like rarely something you're happy to do at higher level. You want something like Shudderwalk that costs 0. You want something like Kurtrus that gives you an extra unit, Hogwaggle, steal the whole shop, that kind of stuff, right? That is really good. I will be honest, I don't know at which point these things will become worth it. Right now, Jailer ability went from 7 minions to 5. Now, to be fair, I never noticed that it went from 9 to 7 because it's still just like garbage and I've never picked it. At 5, maybe, I don't know, but probably not. So these heroes are just really tough to balance because yeah, I don't know what the number would be for me to be happy to do it. I guess to the point where I could power level like crazy. I'm not sure. I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm not sure. It doesn't look like it's gonna be worth it. Maybe I'll try it one time and then, but the issue is I'm going to have to play completely different from how I normally play. If I take Jailer, then I'm going to have to buy stuff like Mana Saber and other tokens to make it worth it. And I'm not going to be able to buy my economy units that I usually buy. Like, and I'm still just, I'm playing a fancy Lantern Light every turn, right? That's what it feels like. And I'm just not that interested in that. Ini went from 10 to 9. Now, Ini is a little bit more impactful just because she gives you economy. This is much better than this, right? You get a mech. I'm not sure if it's going to be good enough, but it's at least a lot more worth to try than Jailer, in my opinion. Maleficent Mana Storm. You now get 3 attack when you summon a mech. Again, that's like I don't know, man. It's just doesn't really do anything. Again, but at lower MMR, this is probably quite solid because now you're going to just buy a bunch of mechs. This is a hero that has historically truly overperformed at lower MMR. Simply because it gave people guidance. Like, oh, I just buy all the mechs. And historically, that has just been good because it means you end up with Deflectobots on your board. Having 2 Deflectobots on your board that are getting higher attack is actually pretty good. And that's probably going to be positive MMR for that game. So Maleficent Mana Storm is something that performs quite well in lower MMRs. But again, for my games, it's just... it just doesn't do anything. Syndragosa is now 2-2. That is sort of impactful. Because Syndragosa's hero power is free. So this is free tempo, as opposed to Jailer. With Jailer, I have to spend a gold to use this thing. With Syndragosa, I don't. I can just use this, and every time I freeze, I get +2/+2 on the things I buy. So that's actually quite a nice buff. That's nice. Ragnaros is now, after 16 minions die, I get 3/3. I don't know, man. Probably not. Ragnaros is like the worst hero for me, so I don't know if 16 units is gonna... I would have to calculate like exactly when I would get it, right? Like kill 1 on turn 1, 1 on turn 2, maybe 2 on turn 3. That still takes so long before this thing is active. Probably not. Probably not. It still takes so long before it's active. You need that early power so you can power level, right? And the problem with Rag is that Rag incentivizes you to not power level because you need to be able to kill things to get your hero power online. Having to stay on the lower tier to activate your mediocre hero power just completely kills your game plan for me. So I'm still not a fan of Rag. Queen Azshara, 30 instead of 25. I think she was lowered to 25 during trinkets because the game was a bit faster paced. And now that the game is a bit slower, again, it's probably okay to make it more difficult to activate. So that's fair. Savjz goes from 2 damage to 3 damage. I don't really care. Again, this is like such a whatever hero power, unfortunately. Sylvanas goes to 3-1. Okay, that's a little bit more impactful because like 3-1 to your whole board, even if you only do that on one particular turn, you could do that on 6 gold where you have 3 units that died and then you level to tier 3 and then you press this button and you get 9 extra damage to your board. She's not the absolute worst hero, but I'm still not happy to take her. Edwin goes to +2/+2 after you buy 5 cards instead of 1/1 after you buy 3 cards. Same thing here. I'm gonna have to change my playstyle to make this good, and I don't want that. I want to be able to power level. I want to be able to get high tier units fast, and Edwin just doesn't do that for me. So again, these type of heroes just do not work. All right, then we have returning cards. I logged in this morning and I saw that Bazaar Dealer was not in. I'm assuming that it was bugged and that they just need to fix it. I don't think that they immediately already nerfed it for balance reasons, so there's probably something buggy with Bazaar Dealer. But yeah, Bazaar Dealer is really good. That's a massive buff to demons, but if we don't know when it's going to be in, so we'll see. Hopefully soon. It's a really fun card to play with. The first Tavern spell costs health instead of gold, and we're going to see that they also moved Archimonde back to 4, but they nerfed him a little bit. We'll talk about that when we see the slide. Party Elemental is back. That's good. Dozy Whelp is back instead of Front Rake. Front Rake was too strong. Sore Loser is back. That's a pretty powerful early undead buff. It's a pretty annoying card to play against. It's so much tempo. Then Bookie is back on tier 2, but it was changed. So instead of having unspent gold, it's now changed. But we're going to see that in a later slide too. You just get 1 gem guaranteed. And a Menagerie Jug is back. That's a little bit of Theodar support, just in general Menagerie support. Yeah, so Buffoon is out. That's why the Bookie is back. And Front Rake is out. That's why Dozy Whelp is back. That's fair. Buffoon was way too good on tier 2. And they didn't want to move it to tier 3, it seems. I guess they had a good balance of cards on tier 3 and they did not want to shift anything. I'm not sure. Then Implant Subject is back. It's now a 4-3 instead of a 3-2. This was not in the game because it was bugged and it was gaining stats after the combat ended. Now they changed the wording on it and they changed how it works. So now it does not gain stats after the combat. It just gains the stats during the combat. Hunter of Gatherer is now a tier 4, but only gives +1 health. So that makes it easier for a mid-rangey thing to acquire Hunter of Gatherer. It makes it easier to do stuff like Nether Drake. Let's say you have Hunter of Gatherer in your shop and you triple into Nether Drake. Now you can do that. So overall, it's not bad. But for stuff like Caligos, this is just a nerf because it was 2 health before. And if you have Caligos, you're already on tier 5 anyway, and it doesn't really matter that much. You can target it with eyes. So then it's just like a normal one. In the end, I don't think it's going to matter that much. We'll see. Prized Promo Drake is a tier 5. And it gives 5-4. Sure. It doesn't really matter to me. I don't even know what this means. Were dragons too strong? Were mid-range dragons too strong? And they had to go to the 4? Or did they just need to put it more? I think it's probably stronger as a tier 4 than a tier 5, right? So I'm assuming that this is because dragons were overperforming at some point. But for, you know, not at high MMR. So, but that's... Prize Promo Drake has always been a card that has done better and lower and mid MMR. Bedrock is now a tier 3. That is very likely to address the baller build that we have seen. So now you can no longer stack Bedrocks on 2 and get additional ballers. It's probably still possible to do baller strategy with a Gallywix or so if you get a good enough shop, if you get some ballers early, but probably most heroes it's not going to be viable anymore. Elemental is a 3-3 instead of a 3-1. Yeah, I mean, I'm already happy to buy Elemental, so I guess demons were just underperforming. This just feels like demons were bad and they're buffing demons because they've brought back the Bazaar Dealer. They're buffing Elemental now. Gemrat is going to a tier 4 instead of a tier 3. That's good. Quillbore, we're definitely still strong, but I would say that the lower MMR you went, the stronger they became, simply because of the ease of execution on this strategy. To make Quillbore work, all you had to do was roll Gemrat early and then triple into a Turbo Hog, and that's a first place. Probably a little bit too easy. So now it's a tier 4. It's a lot harder to get it early. We did just have a Quillbore game ourselves, but it was a lot harder to set it up. So yeah, I like that. Tama is now a 2-2 instead of a 3-3. That's fine. This thing was pretty good. Still going to be happy to buy it as a 2-2. Wrangler now gives +2/+2 instead of 3-3, but it's a 4-6. That's fine. That's probably still pretty good in a lot of cases. This thing was probably scaling a little bit too fast, so that's fair. Zesty is now a tier 2, but Deep Blue is not in the game. On tier 2, with the Thama guy, that is a decent amount of tempo. It's kind of like rolling a Lurker. You can now roll Zesty or Lurker. So that's pretty relevant for this card. You can now you can buy this card early and you have either Lava Lurker or Zesty that you can roll onto. But yeah, Zesty on 2 only is possible because they no longer have Deep Blue. Yeah. And it's like, okay, if you have Thama, it's okay. Arcane Cannoneer is now a 2-6 instead of a 5-6, but it deals 2 damage at the start and it improves by 2. That's good. This card was really hard to play, so I like that they buff it. We'll see what happens. This is now tier 4, but it buffs +5/+5 in taunt. That's actually kind of good. Okay. Like 5/5 in the mid game is actually kind of relevant, so you might actually see this being used for 5/5 at some point on, you know, stuff that you don't want to reborn or stuff that already has reborn. Probably don't want to taunt reborn unless it's Goldrin, and you're not going to do that in the mid game. So Raptor is now a tier 3. Yeah, so these guys just swap position. That's probably to help out Beast a little bit, or it's not really to help out Beast. It's probably to avoid super early reborn Beetle stuff, because that was pretty strong. That's fair. Yeah. So this guy now summons a 5/5 again. It's okay. It's a tempo tool. You can. I already bought it on tier 3 today. It's fine. Not insane. It's good tempo. Chameleon is a tier 5 instead of a tier 4. so it's harder to get 2 of them, but still pretty possible. So Chameleon is a bit of a problematic card right now, I would say. Mainly at higher MMR, simply because players are getting really, really good at abusing this card. When beasts are in and mechs are in, one of the best strategies I go for is full stacking my magnetics on 1 unit and then just copying that twice with Chameleon. And Chameleon being on tier 5 makes it harder to get 2 of them, but it's still far from impossible. I'm not sure how long Chameleon can stay in the game, because the better people become at this, the more it's going to be like, oh, look, another Chameleon guy. Goldrin now buffs +4/+4. That's good. We were not seeing any Goldrin action, so that's a good buff. That's nice. Gulakabra is now 2/2 instead of 2/1. Same thing as Goldrin. People were not playing Gulakabra almost at all, so I don't mind that. Give it a bit of a buff, see what happens. Now this guy, that is relevant. Turning an Avenge 3 into an Avenge 2. You might skip over this card and be like, oh yeah, whatever, small buff, go. But this goes hard. This buffs your undead very, very, very quickly. Especially if you are Greybow. That's crazy. This thing on Greybow, you have 2 of these in the backline and all your summons get taunt. You get in the hundreds of undead damage, right? You get like 120 damage on your undead or something. It's kind of silly. This is a relevant buff. This is a very big buff to undead. So now if you have Primus that you triple into, undead will probably be a legitimate strategy for you to go from that point. They also gave him a stat point, so it's now a 3/9. You don't feel so bad for putting him on your board. Yeah, that is a huge buff. That is super relevant. Holy Mackerel is removed. No, just kidding. It's a tier 6. And it now has Divine Shield to begin with. Probably because they would feel too bad if somebody would triple into a Mackerel on tier 6, and I think that's probably fair. I'm not sure how I feel about this change. This is probably okay for now. It's going to make it harder to do double Mackerel. That's probably the main complaint that people had about this card. Or one taunted Mackerel early with module. I don't think Mackerel really belongs in the game. I think I would still prefer it to not be in. It's so frustrating when you lose to one taunted Mackerel because you don't have a Leroy or a Wind Fury. Zarina is now 3 attack per Tavern spell instead of 2. That's also pretty impactful. That's going to make it so in lobbies where there's no beast, no undead, going with these huge damage shields, it's a good counter into Quillbore. It's a good counter into Dragon and stuff. In the right lobbies, this could actually matter. You get 2 Zarinas on your board. You can go like 200 damage Divine Shield units. That's strong. I would say check the lobby because when you have these very high damage mechs and you have no health on them, they are super vulnerable to one beetle minion could kill 2 or 3 of your minions. So you got to be careful with that, especially if opponents have Blaster. So in the right lobby, this is actually quite relevant. Hollow Rover is now a 3/5 instead of a 4/8. That's a giant loss in stats, and it's justified. Does this make the minion worse? Yes. Does it make it worse to the point where you're not super happy to have it early? No. That's the thing with Hollow Rover, right? You don't pick this unit for the stats, you pick it for the effect. It being a 4/8 made it even possible that it would attack and then survive and then attack again. Now it essentially does what it was supposed to do. It's going to get you 1 magnetic early, unless you're really lucky, right? It can attack and then they never hit your Hollow Rover again, or they hit it for 3 damage and they can't finish it and you attack again. But a 4/8, it was feasible that would survive and attack again. Now with a 3/5, that's much less likely. That makes Hollow Rover worse, but still really good. You definitely still want this. This is not like, oh, I can't, unpickable right now. No, this is very good. Big Brother goes to tier 3. Yeah, this is another indicator that demons were just horribly underperforming in the stats, because now it's going to be so much easier to pick these guys up. Buying a minion on tier 4 is a much larger investment than on tier 3. When you're on tier 3, a lot of the time you're still just trying to fill your board. Let's say you went to tier 3 on 6 gold, which is a pretty common curve these days. On 7 gold, you could do something like buy Big Brother, cast Overconfidence, buff my Tavern, buy another unit, and that's a solid turn, and now you already have them on your board. Whereas if you're playing this on tier 4, a lot of the time what happens is your board is already full, so you're trying to really upgrade, you're trying to find pairs, triples. A tier 4 Big Brother is much more difficult to buy then. It's much more difficult to justify, oh, I'm going to put this on my board right now. So this is going to make it far more likely that you have a Big Brother on your board, which is then going to make it far more likely that you're going to end up playing demons. Because, hey, I already have the shop buffer guy anyway. Soul Rewinder is 4 damage instead of 1. Yeah, this is just straight up demon buffs. It's not super impactful, but it's you know, it's a buff. And then here, this is the most impactful change for demons. Archimond goes from tier 5 to tier 4, but you can no longer reduce the cost of the spell to 0. What this effectively ends up being is you use Archimond to make the cost of eyes 1 gold, and then you eyes your Archimond, and now you reduce the cost of spells to 1 instead of 0. Demons were already so crazy infinite gold that while this does impact them, the fact that you can use eyes on Archimond and then use that Archimond to make the next eyes cheaper, and then use that eyes on Wrathweaver or Malchezaar. Bazaar Dealer is currently not in, but if Bazaar Dealer is in, that means you have Archimond on tier 4 and Bazaar Dealer on tier 4. It's hard to state how good of a combo that is. You can roll Archimond and Bazaar Dealer in the same shop. Buy the Archimond, play the Archimond, play the Tavern guy, buy the spell for 0, and Archimond now discounts the next spell you buy. It's crazy. Before with demons, you would have to go to 5 and you would have to be like, let me roll the Archimond, please. Now you can very relaxed be like, oh, I'm on tier 4 and I already have the Archimonds, and I can buy the Malchezaar on tier 4. I can buy Bazaar Dealer on tier 4. You can get really strong on tier 4 and then very safely level to 5 afterwards. I do think that it's difficult to execute demons because you have to do math. You have to think about your gold and how much you're going to discount. You have to be pretty fast. You have to be comfortable playing with Bran. There's, let's be fair, animation lag when you play with demons. It's frustrating. The game is super slow. But still, players can adapt to that and get good at that. So I think at high level, this is actually going to be a bit of a problem. It's going to be too easy to set up an infinite demon board, because when you have tier 4 Archimond, that is going to get hit with eyes at some point for sure, because you're literally reducing the cost of your spells, so you can buy eyes pretty easily. And then when you have eyes, every time you do self damage, you reduce the cost of the spell by 2. That means that you're buying every Chef's Choice for 1, you're buying every Telescope for 1. Why is that important? If you have Wrathweaver on your board and you play Chef's Choice for 1 gold, it's effectively 0 gold, because the Chef's Choice generates a minion and you can sell that minion. But then, because you have Wrathweaver on your board, you're dealing damage to your own face twice, because you can golden that with eyes again. So now I'm dealing damage to my face twice, which means I'm proccing my Archimond twice, which means I'm reducing the cost of my next spell to 1, which means I can buy something like a Telescope for 1. And now with the Telescope, oh, I discover another demon. Oh, cool, that demon is a Percussionist. Oh, now I have Bran. Now I play Percussionist. Now I get 2 more demons in my hand. But wait, that's not all. Or here's a self damage. Oh, my next spell also costs 1 gold. And right? So that's how demons play. It just goes nothing, 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 infinite cash. Right? That's what happens, right? You go, demons are like, they don't do anything, infinite money all of a sudden. And the fact that you can no longer reduce the spell to 0, I don't think impacts it that much once you have that machine online. When you have that machine online, you oftentimes can't spend all your money anyway. So the fact that you have to pay the 1 gold for the spell is probably, again, right, probably going to be okay. We'll have to see. My initial take on this is very good, very strong. Nether Construct goes to 4/4 buff instead of 5/5. That's fair. It was super easy to get giga buffs to the Tavern, and they're already buffing demons like crazy, so nerfing this a little bit is fine. That's fair. This is a 4/1 instead of a 3/1. Again, this is one of those changes. Sure, it's a bit stronger. It's not that impactful. Mutated Lasher goes to +3/3 instead of 2/3. Don't really care, right? I think the only times I have this on my board is if I'm desperate. And I'm like, oh god, am I picking this? Am I trying to buff my board? Am I trying to buff my tokens? So yeah, it's no Goldrin. Goldrin's just so much easier. Saloon Dancer is +5/5 instead of 4/4. That's a good buff. This thing was pretty weak, and if you spam spells, that does add up, but I don't think I'm super interested in now playing a Saloon Dancer build. When you compare it to Turbo Hog, it's still a bit of a joke. Let's imagine your gems are like +5/5, which is not that hard to do. I can play choose one card, and I give 5/5 to all my Quillbore instead of 2 of my minions. And we all know those gems aren't going to be 5/5 for long. Soon it'll be 10 health, and this thing is not scaling, right? So yeah, it's still just, it's pretty weak, right? And then you might make the argument it's easier to play Tavern Spell than choose 1 cards. If you have Board Gamer, you're generating choose 1 card, so I don't even know if that's true. It feels difficult to really make it function, this thing. It's okay tempo early on. You have like 3 spells in your hand, you triple into this guy, bam, 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 buff, 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 fine. After that, it falls off a cliff very quickly. Okay, another super impactful change. Young Murkai now only hits the minion to the left of this. That is going to drastically lower the power level of high rolls, but it's still going to make Murkai relevant early. The boards that truly get out of control, what do those look like? Golden Murkai, Golden Hackerfin on both sides, Golden Brand, Drakari, right? And then you have both sides being procced and doubled. So the giga high rolls are now about half as strong, because Golden Murkai will now just trigger both sides, but it won't trigger them twice. I like this change because it nerfs those insane boards you see when people truly go out of control, right? When they go out of control and they have the golden Murkai with the golden brand and the golden hacker fins, it just stats. Now, if you triple into a Murkai early, you usually only have one really good battle cry that you want to copy, and then the other one is like, I'll get a coin or something, right? I'll just like, the other battle cry is, I'll put the pirate that gives me gold next turn, whatever. I'll just get some value. Often, sometimes you don't even have a second battle cry. Early on, you're not really that impacted by this, but it's not without impact early, right? It's not without any. But I would say, for the most part, you're still happy to have an early young Murkai. But it's going to drastically lower the power level of these Giga high rolls, which I think is good, right? I like that. So overall, I think this is a good change. Murkai was, yeah, a little bit out of control for high roll builds. Then Hackerfin is now +3/+2. That's probably to account for this nerf, which is fair, right? Again, I don't want them to kill the Hackerfin build, so I like this. I think this is good. Yeah, not much else to say about it. I think it's a nice little compensation. Same thing here, Murkai Begurgle. You didn't really do a lot of Begurgling, but, you know, sometimes you had it on next to it for 1 or 2 turns. Now it's 3/4 instead of 3/3. Again, fine. It's a fine little compensation. Nightbane is now an 8/6 instead of a 7/6, but Nightbane can no longer give more damage to Nightbane. And the reason why that is good is if you put 2 Nightbanes on your board, one Nightbane buffing the other Nightbane that was just stupid, right? Especially if you have Poet next to it. Now you have permanent, like 100 damage on your Nightbane, and then that 100 damage Nightbane gives the other Nightbane an extra 100 damage, and it just gets out of control so fast. So I really, really don't like the ability to generate infinite attack with Nightbane. I think that the high damage dragon build is okay. I think it has a place in the game. I don't like it turning into the infinite damage dragon build, which it so very often became. So I like this. I like that it doesn't buff itself anymore. Okay, Bookie was changed. It used to be a 2/4, and if you floated a gold, you would get 2 blood gems. But now that spells are in the game, it's way easier to not float gold. You can just buy a coin, you can buy a chef's choice, all that stuff. It would be very frustrating, I think, to float gold. So I like this change. You now get 1 blood gem guaranteed, and this is to compensate for removing Buffoon. Buffoon was too strong, way too many gems early, so it's fine. The Bookie is, this is okay. I don't think it's crazy, but it's still useful. You get 1 gem per turn, that's fair. Boundless Potential now only costs 3 gold, but it no longer discovers a spell from a higher tier. I think that's good because, you know, maybe it's a bit of an exaggeration, but it feels like half my wins happen because I cast Boundless Potential on tier 5, roll Wisdom Ball, and then make a Golden Brand or something else silly. So this was something that happened all the time. Boundless on tier 5, cast it for a spell higher, get Wisdom Ball, roll Wisdom Ball early, boom, my board is insane. I like that they changed that because that was a really strong strategy. And now at 3 gold, discovering a minion of your tier is just good. That's good. Like, you're on tier 5 and you pay 3 gold for discovering a 5-drop? That's good. Especially if your build needs 5 drops. I mean, obviously you're not going to cast it if you don't need 5 drops, but if you're actively looking for 2 or 3 specific 5 drops, you could be looking for Drakari, you could be looking for Titus, you could be looking for Bran. Those are really key minions for a lot of builds, and now you can just buy that for 3 gold. Really good. It's a nerf because getting a Wisdom Ball was insane. And now you have to be on tier 6 to get the Wisdom Ball. It's a lot harder to be on 6 than on 5, so it's a nerf, but it's not bad. I like that they compensated it with making it cheaper, so now you're just happy to buy it to discover the minion from your tier. I like that. Good job, devs. And then Fandral goes to 4 gold instead of 3. This one I was probably completely out of the loop. I wasn't really buying this a lot, but I think in certain lobbies, you had a really high chance of getting the demon that buffs and eats because there's like not many choose 1 cards in those lobbies. That was really powerful. So that might be the reason that they nerfed it a bit, or it's just Quillbore, just in general, Quillbore doing too well. But even for Quillbore, I wasn't really buying this all the time. Like, anyways, 4 gold now. That's fair. All right, guys, that is a wrap. That's all the changes. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will keep doing these whenever there's a patch, but you guys know what's up.